Welcome. Night has finally settled over the world, carrying with it the quiet that follows a day now complete, and this is your invitation to set everything aside, find a comfortable place to rest, and allow yourself to drift gently into a space where nothing is expected from you except your presence. Let your breathing slow without effort as the silence around you becomes something you can almost feel, wrapping itself softly around your thoughts until every unnecessary tension begins to loosen its grip. Before long, you may discover that the peace you have searched for has never been somewhere beyond your reach at all, but patiently waiting beneath the noise, ready to reveal itself the moment you become still enough to notice. Throughout this journey, we will walk together through timeless Stoic wisdom, following ideas that have guided thoughtful minds through uncertainty, hardship, and change for centuries while gently preparing your own mind for deep rest. Each reflection will lead naturally into the next, not as isolated lessons but as quiet steps descending toward a place of increasing calm, where resilience grows without force and serenity emerges without struggle. And as one insight gives way to another, you may begin to wonder what hidden source of strength has been resting inside you all along, unnoticed beneath the constant movement of everyday life. Our first reflection begins with one of the most liberating truths ever discovered: learning to recognize the quiet boundary between what truly belongs to your power and what never has. Much of our worry is born from reaching toward things that remain forever outside our hands. Yet what happens when that struggle finally comes to an end and your attention returns to the one place where it has always been able to make a difference? As that question settles gently within you, another door quietly begins to open, inviting you to discover where lasting peace has always been waiting. As this first reflection unfolds, allow yourself to consider how much of your energy has been spent trying to reshape events that were never yours to command, whether they belong to another person's choices, an uncertain tomorrow, or a past that refuses to return. The Stoic teachers remind us that true freedom does not begin by mastering the world around us, but by recognizing that our thoughts, our judgments, our intentions, and the actions we choose in this present moment are the only territory that has ever truly belonged to us. When that realization settles deeply enough, something unexpected begins to happen, and the weight you have carried for so long slowly starts to lose its hold. Imagine a great tree standing quietly beneath the night sky, rooted firmly while the wind shifts without warning, the rain arrives without permission, and the changing seasons pass one after another beyond anything the tree could ever control. It cannot command the weather or bargain with the storm, yet it continues drawing strength from its roots, bending when necessary without surrendering the quiet dignity that allows it to remain standing through every season. In much the same way, perhaps your greatest strength has never depended upon controlling the storm itself, but upon nurturing the roots that no storm can ever reach. The world outside you will always resemble the changing wind, sometimes gentle and sometimes relentless, yet your inner response remains the place where your deepest freedom quietly lives. Epictetus reminded us that it is never events themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we attach to them, and those judgments remain within our power to examine and reshape whenever we choose. As you silently repeat to yourself, "I release what I cannot control and I give my attention only to what is truly mine," notice how your shoulders soften, your breathing deepens, and ask yourself what new peace might become possible if you stopped carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. As your attention gradually returns to the quiet space that belongs only to you, allow every unnecessary strain to dissolve little by little, as though it were simply mist fading beneath the first light of dawn. There is no need to wrestle with every uncertainty that appears before you, because your peace was never meant to depend upon controlling every movement of the world outside. When your awareness rests gently on what truly lies within your care, the mind naturally becomes clearer, creating space for the next truth to reveal itself. Our next reflection invites you to look beyond your own choices toward everything that simply exists as it is, because even after learning what belongs within your control, countless circumstances remain untouched by your will. Much of human suffering comes from quietly arguing with reality, wishing that this moment were different from what it already is. Yet what would happen if, instead of resisting the present, you allowed yourself to meet it exactly as it has arrived? This question does not ask you to surrender your strength, but gently leads you toward discovering a deeper kind of freedom. Picture a peaceful lake resting beneath the pale glow of the moon, where a light breeze creates small ripples across the surface while the water far below remains perfectly still, untouched by the movement above. The surface reflects passing events, but the silent depths preserve their calm without effort, reminding us that beneath every restless thought there is a place within us that has never stopped being peaceful. If your own mind could settle into those quiet depths instead of struggling against every passing wave, what hidden stillness might you finally discover waiting there? Accepting the present does not mean becoming passive or abandoning hope, because there is great strength in seeing reality clearly without exhausting yourself by demanding that it become something else before you can know peace. The Stoic path teaches that when resistance fades, the energy once consumed by inner conflict becomes available for wisdom, compassion, and deliberate action, allowing the heart to grow lighter even while circumstances remain unchanged. As Epictetus wisely taught, do not ask that life unfold according to your wishes, but instead wish to meet life as it unfolds, and serenity quietly begins to follow. Repeat gently within yourself, I welcome this moment exactly as it is, and within acceptance I discover peace. Allow those words to settle as naturally as darkness settles over the evening landscape, not forcing your thoughts into silence but inviting them to become softer until they no longer demand your attention with such urgency. As your breathing grows steadier and your mind becomes less occupied with changing what already exists, another layer of understanding patiently begins to emerge beneath the surface. From this deeper stillness, we are naturally led toward another timeless insight, one that quietly transforms the way we measure security, happiness, and even our own worth. So many people spend their lives searching outside themselves for something that can never truly satisfy, yet have you ever wondered whether the greatest treasure you could possess has been resting within you from the very beginning, untouched by fortune, untouched by loss, and waiting only to be recognized? That question gently opens the door to the next reflection, where we begin exploring the one form of wealth that no circumstance can ever take away. Our third reflection turns gently toward a truth that the world often encourages us to overlook, the quiet reality that everything we depend upon outside ourselves can change without warning, while something far more enduring remains untouched within. Possessions may disappear, recognition may fade, and the opinions of others may rise and fall like changing weather, but the quality of your character, the wisdom you cultivate, and the peace you nurture inside your own heart belong to a different kind of wealth entirely. If everything external could be taken away tomorrow, what part of you would still remain exactly as it is tonight? Imagine that within you there is a hidden garden protected behind ancient stone walls, a place unknown to the noise and confusion beyond its gates where every noble thought becomes a flower and every act of kindness becomes another tree taking root. Storms may sweep across the landscape outside those walls, seasons may change and countless events may unfold beyond your reach, yet the care you give to this quiet sanctuary continues shaping it day after day, making it richer with every moment of patience, courage, and understanding you choose to cultivate. The more faithfully you tend this inner garden, the more clearly you discover that its abundance depends upon nothing the outside world can either offer or remove. Marcus Aurelius gently reminded us that very little is needed for a happy life because its deepest source exists within the way we think, and those words still echo with remarkable clarity across the centuries. Repeat silently to yourself, my true wealth lives within me, and each peaceful thought helps it grow, allowing the meaning of those words to settle naturally into your heart as though they had always belonged there. And once you begin trusting this inner abundance more than the uncertain promises of the world beyond it, another question quietly arises, for if your greatest strength already lives within you, what purpose might the obstacles along your path truly serve? Our next reflection invites you to see every obstacle through a different lens, because the Stoic tradition has always suggested that difficulties are not interruptions placed across the path of life but part of the very road we are meant to travel. Every disappointment, every delay, and every unexpected hardship carries within it an opportunity to strengthen qualities that comfort alone could never fully develop, quietly shaping patience, courage, and resilience where they are needed most. But if every challenge contains the possibility of becoming your teacher, could the moments you once feared actually be preparing you for a strength you have not yet discovered? Imagine a blacksmith standing before a glowing forge as raw iron disappears into the intense heat before returning again and again beneath the steady rhythm of the hammer. Neither the fire nor the repeated blows exist to destroy the metal, for together they awaken a hidden strength that could never emerge if the iron remained untouched, transforming something ordinary into something capable of enduring great weight without breaking. In much the same way, the pressures that life places upon you may not be signs that you are failing, but quiet invitations to become stronger than you believed possible. Marcus Aurelius expressed this truth with remarkable simplicity when he wrote that the obstacle standing in the way becomes the way itself, reminding us that resistance often conceals the very path forward. Repeat gently within yourself, every challenge strengthens what is best within me, and notice how even the memory of past hardships begins to feel less like a burden and more like evidence of how much you have already survived. And once you recognize that adversity can become an instrument of growth rather than defeat, your attention naturally returns to the one place where every meaningful transformation can only begin, the present moment. Our fifth reflection gently returns your attention to the only moment that has ever truly belonged to you, because the mind has a quiet habit of wandering toward memories that cannot be rewritten or futures that have not yet arrived. As it drifts between what has already passed and what may never come, it gradually abandons the single place where life is actually unfolding, leaving behind a sense of restlessness that grows almost unnoticed. But what might change if, instead of following every thought into yesterday or tomorrow, you allowed yourself to remain completely present with this single peaceful moment? Picture a skilled artisan seated before a piece of unfinished work, giving complete attention to the movement of each hand rather than imagining the applause that may come after the work is complete. Every careful touch, every deliberate motion, and every quiet adjustment receives the same patient focus until the outside world seems to fade away, leaving only the craftsman and the task resting peacefully before him. It is within this complete presence, rather than within the finished result, that a deep and steady calm quietly reveals itself. Marcus Aurelius encouraged us to perform each action as though it were the final one entrusted to our care, not to create urgency, but to awaken complete presence in whatever stands before us now. Repeat softly within yourself, "I remain fully present, and I carry out this moment with calm attention," allowing those words to anchor your awareness like a steady hand resting gently upon still water. And as your mind becomes more deeply rooted in the quiet certainty of the present, another question begins to emerge, for if peace depends not only on where your attention rests, what else within you may still be quietly disturbing its calm? Our sixth reflection gently invites you to observe another quiet source of inner unrest, one that often hides beneath the surface of everyday life without asking for permission before shaping your emotions. So much of our anxiety grows from longing for what we do not possess or shrinking away from what we hope never arrives. Yet every time our peace depends upon circumstances beyond our command, we unknowingly surrender it to a world that is constantly changing. What would remain if your sense of calm no longer depended upon getting everything you wanted or avoiding everything you feared? Imagine yourself guiding a small boat across a wide and endless sea beneath the stillness of the night, where shifting winds, rising waves, and unseen currents belong entirely to the ocean and never to the sailor holding the helm. No amount of wishing can silence the wind, and no fear can persuade the waves to disappear, but your hands remain free to adjust the sails, steady the rudder, and choose the direction you will take through whatever conditions unfold before you. The sea may never become perfectly calm, yet the quiet confidence of the navigator grows stronger each time he remembers that mastery was never about controlling the water, but about learning to guide himself through it. The Stoics understood that genuine freedom is not found in satisfying every desire but in loosening the grip those desires have upon the heart, allowing wisdom rather than impulse to decide the course ahead. Repeat gently within yourself, "I release my attachment and I discover peace in needing less," noticing how those words create space where tension once quietly lived. And as your mind becomes lighter with every expectation it no longer carries, another truth slowly begins to reveal itself. For once desire and fear no longer cloud your vision, how differently might you begin to understand the hardships that still appear along your path? Our seventh reflection gently encourages you to look at adversity through a wider perspective, because it is easy to believe that hardship has singled you out when life becomes difficult. Yet the Stoic philosophers remind us that challenges do not arise as personal punishments but as natural expressions of a world that is constantly changing, just as night inevitably follows day and winter quietly gives way to spring. If difficulties belong to the nature of life itself rather than to your personal story, how much of their power over your mind begins to fade? Imagine an ancient forest that has stood beneath countless seasons, where towering trees carry the marks of storms that once bent their branches and fires that once darkened their bark without taking away their life. Every scar tells the story of endurance rather than defeat, revealing that the forest became stronger not because it escaped hardship but because it continued growing through every season that tested its roots. In the same way, the challenges you have faced are not merely obstacles scattered across your path, but quiet witnesses to the resilience that has been taking shape within you all along. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that everything unfolds according to the order of nature, inviting us to see even adversity as part of a greater pattern rather than an interruption of it. Repeat softly within yourself, "Difficulties belong to life, and through them I continue to grow stronger," allowing those words to settle gently as your breathing becomes slower and your thoughts less burdened by resistance. And as you begin to move with the current of life instead of struggling against it, another profound truth patiently waits to reveal itself. For if every season eventually changes, what does that quietly teach us about the nature of every joy and every sorrow we experience? Our eighth reflection gently turns your attention toward one of the most universal truths of existence, a truth that quietly shapes every experience whether we choose to notice it or not. Much of our suffering arises because we cling tightly to what brings us comfort and believe that what causes us pain will remain forever, yet life has never stopped moving and every moment, whether joyful or difficult, continues flowing onward. If everything you have ever experienced has eventually changed, could the peace you seek begin by trusting that this moment too will not remain forever? Imagine yourself lying beneath an endless night sky, watching soft clouds drift silently across the face of the moon, each one arriving without announcement and disappearing without asking permission. Some clouds are dark enough to hide the light for a while others are so thin they barely leave a trace before fading into the distance, yet the vast sky above them never struggles to hold one or resist another. Your thoughts, your emotions, and even the seasons of your life resemble those passing clouds, while the quiet awareness that observes them remains as spacious and unchanged as the sky itself. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on how swiftly everything passes into history, reminding himself that nothing visible remains forever no matter how permanent it may seem today. Repeat softly within yourself, "Everything passes, and within that truth I find peace," allowing those words to move gently through your mind until they feel as natural as your own breathing. And as you begin to rest more comfortably within the flow of change itself, another quiet realization begins to emerge, for if everything outside you is temporary, where can lasting stability truly be found? Our ninth reflection gently introduces one of the most liberating ideas within Stoic philosophy, an idea that challenges the importance we often assign to the changing conditions of the outside world. Wealth and poverty, praise and criticism, health and illness may shape the circumstances of our lives, yet none of them possesses the power to determine whether we become wise, just, courageous, or peaceful unless we surrender that authority ourselves. If your deepest well-being cannot truly be created by fortune, can it also never be destroyed by fortune? Imagine yourself as an actor stepping onto a great stage where each performance requires a different costume, sometimes rich and elegant, sometimes plain and worn, yet every garment remains only a part of the role rather than the essence of the one wearing it. The audience may admire one costume more than another, but the excellence of the performance depends not upon the clothing itself, only upon the integrity, presence, and skill with which the actor fulfills the part entrusted to him. In the same way, the circumstances surrounding your life are merely the garments of the moment, while your character quietly remains the only measure of who you truly are. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that whatever does not make a person morally worse cannot truly make that person's life worse, because the greatest good is found within the soul rather than within changing events. Repeat gently within yourself, "My peace belongs to my character, not to my circumstances," allowing those words to settle with the quiet certainty of something that has always been true beneath every passing season of your life. And once you recognize that even favorable circumstances cannot create lasting serenity, another gentle question begins to unfold: for what happens when you also release your attachment to the results of your own efforts? Our 10th reflection gently invites you to loosen your grip on something that often steals peace without being noticed, the quiet attachment to how every effort must ultimately end. We naturally hope for certain outcomes after giving our time, our care, and our energy, yet the Stoics remind us that the unfolding of events is influenced by countless forces beyond our reach, making disappointment almost inevitable whenever our serenity depends entirely upon a particular result. But what would become possible if your greatest satisfaction came not from controlling the harvest, but from knowing you had faithfully tended the soil? Our 8th reflection gently turns your attention toward one of the most universal truths of existence, a truth that quietly shapes every experience whether we choose to notice it or not. Much of our suffering arises because we cling tightly to what brings us comfort and believe that what causes us pain will remain forever, yet life has never stopped moving and every moment, whether joyful or difficult, continues flowing onward. If everything you have ever experienced has eventually changed, could the peace you seek begin by trusting that this moment too will not remain forever? Imagine yourself lying beneath an endless night sky, watching soft clouds drift silently across the face of the moon, each one arriving without announcement and disappearing without asking permission. Some clouds are dark enough to hide the light for a while others are so thin they barely leave a trace before fading into the distance, yet the vast sky above them never struggles to hold one or resist another. Your thoughts, your emotions, and even the seasons of your life resemble those passing clouds, while the quiet awareness that observes them remains as spacious and unchanged as the sky itself. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on how swiftly everything passes into history, reminding himself that nothing visible remains forever no matter how permanent it may seem today. Repeat softly within yourself, "Everything passes, and within that truth I find peace," allowing those words to move gently through your mind until they feel as natural as your own breathing. And as you begin to rest more comfortably within the flow of change itself, another quiet realization begins to emerge, for if everything outside you is temporary, where can lasting stability truly be found? Our ninth reflection gently introduces one of the most liberating ideas within Stoic philosophy, an idea that challenges the importance we often assign to the changing conditions of the outside world. Wealth and poverty, praise and criticism, health and illness may shape the circumstances of our lives, yet none of them possesses the power to determine whether we become wise, just, courageous, or peaceful unless we surrender that authority ourselves. If your deepest well-being cannot truly be created by fortune, can it also never be destroyed by fortune? Imagine yourself as an actor stepping onto a great stage where each performance requires a different costume, sometimes rich and elegant, sometimes plain and worn, yet every garment remains only a part of the role rather than the essence of the one wearing it. The audience may admire one costume more than another, but the excellence of the performance depends not upon the clothing itself, only upon the integrity, presence, and skill with which the actor fulfills the part entrusted to him. In the same way, the circumstances surrounding your life are merely the garments of the moment, while your character quietly remains the only measure of who you truly are. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that whatever does not make a person morally worse cannot truly make that person's life worse, because the greatest good is found within the soul rather than within changing events. Repeat gently within yourself, "My peace belongs to my character, not to my circumstances," allowing those words to settle with the quiet certainty of something that has always been true beneath every passing season of your life. And once you recognize that even favorable circumstances cannot create lasting serenity, another gentle question begins to unfold: for what happens when you also release your attachment to the results of your own efforts? Our 10th reflection gently invites you to loosen your grip on something that often steals peace without being noticed, the quiet attachment to how every effort must ultimately end. We naturally hope for certain outcomes after giving our time, our care, and our energy, yet the Stoics remind us that the unfolding of events is influenced by countless forces beyond our reach, making disappointment almost inevitable whenever our serenity depends entirely upon a particular result. But what would become possible if your greatest satisfaction came not from controlling the harvest, but from knowing you had faithfully tended the soil? Imagine a devoted gardener planting a single seed beneath the earth with patience rather than certainty, preparing the ground with care, watering it faithfully, and trusting that each small act contributes to its growth even though the rain, the changing weather, and the passing seasons remain beyond human command. The gardener cannot force the seed to bloom through anxiety, nor can worry persuade the sun to rise more quickly, yet every quiet act of attention becomes meaningful because it reflects the gardener's character rather than guaranteeing a particular reward. In the same way, your deepest peace grows each time you devote yourself completely to what is yours to do, while gently releasing the need to command everything that follows. Epictetus reminded his students that it is never events themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we build around them, inviting us to place our energy where it has genuine power instead of where it only creates frustration. Repeat softly within yourself, "I give my best with an open heart, and I peacefully release the outcome," allowing those words to settle as naturally as leaves resting upon still water. And as your heart becomes lighter without the burden of forcing tomorrow to obey today's hopes, another quiet discovery begins to appear, for if so much suffering comes from the stories we attach to events, what happens when we begin seeing reality exactly as it is? Our 11th reflection gently invites you to notice how quickly the mind begins adding its own stories to the simple events of life, often creating suffering long before reality itself has spoken. A single word, a passing expression, or an unexpected silence can become the beginning of countless imagined conclusions, not because the event contains them, but because our judgments quietly fill the empty spaces with fear, expectation, or doubt. What would happen if you allowed each moment to remain exactly as it is before asking your mind to explain it? Imagine standing beside a perfectly clear spring where the water reflects everything above it with remarkable honesty, never changing the shape of a cloud or the color of the evening sky. The spring does not argue with what appears upon its surface, nor does it invent meanings that were never present. It simply reflects what exists before allowing the image to pass naturally away. Your mind possesses that same quiet ability whenever you observe life before rushing to interpret it, discovering that clarity often appears when judgment learns to wait. Epictetus reminded us that people are disturbed not by things themselves but by the opinions they form about them, a truth that gently returns us to the freedom of examining every thought before accepting it as reality. Repeat silently, "I see clearly before I judge, and in clarity I find peace," allowing those words to settle gently with every slow breath you take. And as the habit of immediate judgment begins to soften, another deeper question patiently emerges, for if your thoughts can become calmer through wisdom, what quality within you deserves to guide every choice you make? Our 12th reflection gently leads you toward the quiet center of Stoic philosophy, where every external circumstance becomes secondary to the one thing that always remains within your reach, the character you choose to cultivate. Success and failure may come and go, and the opinions of others may rise or disappear without warning, yet the way you respond through wisdom, justice, courage and self-control continues to belong entirely to you. If each day offered only one true opportunity, would it not be the chance to become a slightly better version of yourself than you were yesterday? Imagine a master sculptor standing before a block of marble that reveals its beauty only through countless careful movements, each patient strike removing what is unnecessary rather than adding something new. No single touch completes the work, yet every thoughtful decision slowly uncovers the form that has been waiting within the stone from the very beginning, shaped not through haste but through unwavering dedication. Your own character grows in much the same way, not through dramatic moments alone, but through quiet choices repeated faithfully until they become part of who you are. The Stoics believe that virtue is the highest good because it cannot be stolen by fortune, diminished by hardship, or granted by the approval of others, making it the one possession that remains secure through every season of life. Repeat gently within yourself, with each choice I strengthen what is best within me, allowing those words to settle deeply as your breathing becomes slower and your heart more at ease. And as you begin to understand that true progress is measured by the person you become rather than the rewards you receive, another quiet realization begins to unfold, for what happens when you no longer seek your value in the eyes of those around you? Our 13th reflection gently invites you to release one of the heaviest burdens the mind can carry, the quiet dependence upon the approval of other people to feel complete. Praise may lift your spirits for a moment, while criticism may seem to shake your confidence, yet both belong to minds beyond your own, changing as quickly as the weather and remaining forever outside your command. If your peace rises and falls with every opinion you encounter, who is truly guiding the course of your life? Imagine a lighthouse standing alone along a rugged shoreline, sending its steady light across the dark sea regardless of whether passing ships admire its brightness, overlook its presence or never notice it at all. The lighthouse does not change its purpose to satisfy every traveler who passes before it, nor does it extinguish its light because someone fails to appreciate its work. It simply continues fulfilling the role it was built to serve with quiet consistency. Your own character is much like that unwavering light, growing stronger each time you choose to act according to wisdom rather than chasing the shifting judgments of others. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the opinion of another person belongs to that person, not to you, encouraging a life directed by conscience instead of applause. Repeat softly within yourself, I seek the approval of my own character before the approval of the world, and allow those words to settle gently until they feel stronger than any passing praise or criticism you have ever received. As that quiet independence begins to take root within you, another thoughtful question naturally appears, for if your worth no longer depends upon how others see you, what quiet intention should guide every action you choose from this moment forward? Our 14th reflection gently turns toward the quiet intention that rests behind every choice you make, because while the world often measures actions by their visible results, the Stoics looked first at the spirit from which those actions were born. Outcomes may be shaped by countless forces beyond your reach, but your willingness to act with honesty, fairness, patience and courage always remains your own, quietly revealing the direction of your character regardless of what follows. If your intention remains true even when success does not arrive, has anything of real value actually been lost? Imagine an archer standing peacefully beneath the open sky, drawing the bow with complete attention as every movement becomes deliberate, balanced, and calm before the arrow is finally released. Once the string has been loosed, the changing wind, the shifting air, and every unseen influence begin to play their part, yet none of them can erase the care, discipline, and integrity that shaped the archer's effort before the arrow ever left the bow. In much the same way, your responsibility ends where your sincere intention has been fully expressed, leaving the rest to unfold according to the larger order of life. Epictetus encouraged his students to devote themselves completely to right action while accepting whatever followed with a peaceful mind, reminding them that excellence is found in the quality of their choices rather than in the certainty of their results. Repeat gently within yourself, I act with wisdom and I peacefully release what follows, allowing those words to settle into your breathing until they become as natural as the quiet rhythm of the night itself. And as your heart becomes less burdened by uncertainty, another gentle discovery begins to draw near, for if right intention brings such freedom, What deeper peace becomes possible when the mind itself learns to embrace silence? Our 15th reflection gently invites you into a place that cannot be found by traveling farther, acquiring more, or asking life to become different than it already is, because the deepest quiet has always begun within the mind itself. Even when the world remains busy, uncertain, and filled with constant movement, there exists a peaceful refuge that no noise can truly disturb unless you abandon it yourself. But where is this silent refuge that has remained with you through every season of your life, patiently waiting for your return? Imagine an ancient stone sanctuary resting high above the restless valleys below, its walls unmoved by distant storms and its halls filled with a stillness so complete that even the faintest sound seems to dissolve into the silence. Outside, the winds continue their endless journey, clouds gather and disappear, and countless travelers hurry along forgotten roads, yet within those quiet walls nothing struggles to keep the peace because the peace has never depended upon the changing world beyond them. Your own mind holds a sanctuary just as enduring whenever you gently withdraw from unnecessary fears and return to the calm that has always existed beneath them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people seek retreats in distant places while overlooking the one sanctuary they can enter at any moment within their own soul, a place where renewal asks for nothing except quiet attention. Repeat softly within yourself, "I return to the stillness within, and there I find lasting peace," allowing those words to settle gently with every slow breath until they seem to arise naturally from your own heart. And as this inner silence becomes more familiar than the endless noise of the outside world, one final reflection quietly approaches, inviting you to gather everything you have discovered into a single, peaceful understanding that can remain with you long after this night has passed. Our final reflection gathers every quiet step you have taken throughout this journey into a single understanding, one that has been quietly unfolding from the very beginning without asking you to force anything or become someone different overnight. Each insight has gently pointed toward the same enduring truth. Lasting peace is not discovered by controlling the world, but by cultivating the calm, wisdom, and integrity that already exist within your own heart. As you rest here now, can you sense how these timeless ideas have not added something new to you, but simply uncovered something that was waiting patiently beneath the noise all along? Imagine watching the first faint light of dawn slowly appear across the horizon after a long and peaceful night, where nothing changes all at once, yet every passing moment gently reveals what was hidden by the darkness before. The hills, the trees, and the quiet landscape have remained present the entire time, waiting only for enough light to make them visible again, just as your own inner strength has never disappeared but only waited for moments of stillness to become clear once more. The wisdom you have explored tonight is much like that gentle sunrise, not creating peace where none existed, but allowing you to recognize the peace that has quietly accompanied you through every chapter of your life. As you prepare to drift into restful sleep, carry these reflections with you without effort, trusting that they will continue working quietly within your mind long after these words have faded into silence. Repeat softly one final time, "Peace begins within me, and with every breath I return to it," allowing those words to settle naturally until they no longer feel like something you are saying, but something you deeply know. And as the night gently embraces you, may your thoughts become lighter, your breathing slower, and your rest as steady and enduring as the quiet wisdom that has accompanied you every step of the way.